I got a kitchen fire.
What started as a routine call for help
We're out of water.
We have a hydrant issue. Back out of these structures.
It was literally the whole hydrant.
became a rescue
300 or 400 pound hydrant broke off the ground, flew up and hit him in the face.
of one of their own.
How could this happen? Is this real life? He was supposed to come home and be okay.
Luckily, he didn't get killed.
It shouldn't have been a total loss. We live right next to a fire hydrant. Like, we're secure, we're safe. If we ever have a fire, it's right there, 30 feet away. And that wasn't the case that night.
Our investigation discovered the hydrant was decades old.
Why was a fire hydrant still 50 years later, still able to operate inside the city?
And it wasn't the only one.
There's a fire hydrant directly in front of me, and I got pictures on the bottom side of that. That one's all rusted.
Mayor, we've been trying to get somebody from the city to talk about aging infrastructure, meaning the old fire hydrants in the city.
Our investigation found aging hydrants across the Tampa Bay area. We're asking whether communities know which hydrants could fail.
Is this something that you would be okay with, or is this just something that you want to see?
Yeah, so that picture there, absolutely not.
Before the next emergency.
Would you know where the closest hydrant is to your home? It should be just a couple hundred feet away from your front door. You'd expect if flames broke out at your house or your neighbor's house, this would be the tool used to get the fire out. Well, when a call came into this neighborhood last fall, a decades-old hydrant failed. Our team spent months investigating how something like this could happen.
911 with the address of the emergency.
I got a kitchen fire.
Fire department is being sent. Stay on the line. I'll tell you exactly what to do.
October 23rd, 2025.
We've already got help on the way. They're coming as fast as they can. Where are they at? They're coming as fast as they can right now.
What began as a kitchen fire
The fire's getting really bad.
became something much bigger because even after the firefighters arrived, the flames kept growing.
Were you expecting it to be pretty much out pretty quickly? Or?
It should have been out fairly quick.
Joshua Ellis is the one you hear on the 911 call.
The house is really bad.
He was inside. So was his daughter and two family dogs.
We were telling them, about the dogs, 2 dogs inside. And then, out of nowhere, you see the firefighters retreating from the house.
Backing out, not because of the fire, because they suddenly couldn't fight it.
Engine 9, we're out of water.
Interior crews back out. We have a hydrant issue. Back out of these structures.
I didn't hear it exactly, but I think one of the neighbors heard them say, "Oh, we're out of water." And I'm like, "What do you mean you're out of water?"
Out of water. A firefighter down. The hydrant just feet away from Josh's door had exploded. The single failure changed everything.
But then they ran out of water, so then the fire spread to this little side room right here. It got pretty extreme in there.
It's been 9 months since the fire.
Everybody was shocked that something like that could even happen.
Josh still hasn't been able to move back in. The home was a total loss.
I thought it was going to be a quick put out, which everybody that I talked to, I got several family members that are working the fire departments from high to low, and they said, yeah, it should have been a quick put out and it shouldn't have been this.
Josh lost his home.
Usually during my sleep, I'll get a nightmare of the accident.
How bad your headache?
How bad is it?
Yeah.
It's like an 8.
Okay.
Firefighter Tyler Villamek lost his sense of normalcy.
Sometimes though, it's not a bad dream that'll wake me up. It's my neck pain or my jaw.
Not knowing if he'll ever fight fires again as he tries to recover from a traumatic brain injury.
There was the normal that I was living before the accident, and now there's this new normal that I have after the accident, and it's hard. It's hard to accept that.
When they say traumatic brain injury to you, what goes through your mind?
A mix of emotions. How could this happen? Is this real life? He was supposed to come home and be okay.
How could this happen? How does a hydrant suddenly explode? It's a question we spent months trying to answer. And what we've uncovered raises even more questions. The hydrant, decades old, some would say it was an obsolete model because instead of multiple bolts, it just had 2. The homeowner tells us it was corroded, although records show It passed inspection just 8 months before the fire.
How does a hydrant just break off the ground? That's not something that occurs overnight. You know, it's not like, oh, the hydrant looks good yesterday, and then today all of a sudden that whole thing just breaks off the ground. Were they maintained properly? Was the city going out there and inspecting them, you know, the way they're supposed to?
Martin Villamek is Tyler's father, but he was also a firefighter for 40 years.
We're looking at how old was this hydrant? You know, we're finding out that these hydrants are over 50 years old. You know, when a fire engine is over 20 years old, they replace that engine or truck or apparatus. Why? Because things start to fail. Why was a fire hydrant still 50 years later, you know, still able to operate inside the city?
And the hydrant that was here isn't even close to being the oldest hydrant in the city. Records show some hydrants dating back to the early 1900s. And it's not just in St. Pete. We've found rusty old hydrants all throughout the Bay Area. Welcome back. We've now moved to the other side of St. Pete where we found another rusty old hydrant. Take a look at this. These bolts look so corroded. I'm not sure how you would get a tool to unscrew them. And it actually appears that this hydrant says 1914. And this isn't the only decades old hydrant we've located in the city.
We took our cameras out to a few of those spots. We found hydrants rusty, aged, corroded. This video that was shared with us shows a loose hydrant shaking in the ground.
Never once in your 40-year career did you think that it would be the hydrant that could hurt you?
No, you know, and I've had friends, you know, call me and ask how Tyler's doing. They're like, hey, what happened? Did a cap hit him? And I try to explain it to them. And they're firefighters also from Chicago, where I used to live in Dunedin and Clearwater and stuff like that. And they'll say, what do you mean it broke off at the base?
After the incident, St. Pete Fire Rescue sent out this memo regarding an investigation into the hydrant failure. It went on to say Water Resources, the department in charge of inspecting hydrants in St. Pete, identified an issue affecting an undetermined number of U.S. pipe hydrants, specifically those with a collar at the base and just 2 bolts. It's the same kind that records show are some of the oldest in the city. You can see that the location where the hydrant blew off has been replaced with an 8-bolt.
I guess if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I think that's their mentality until something breaks and then, you know, almost kills a firefighter, you know, destroys a whole house and kills a couple dogs. And, you know, I mean, I think, you know, somebody, the mayor or the fire chiefs, they need to really look at themselves in the mirror and say, hey, you know, we need to start putting a lot of money to the side to start updating 50, 60-year-old hydrants.
For months, we tried to talk with anyone in the city, from the fire department, Water Resources, to the mayor's office. We were continuously denied, being told this was a personnel issue, even though we explained we were taking a look at aging hydrants across the community. So we showed up to a mayor's press conference to ask him questions about the city's aging hydrants.
We've got a database from the city that shows that there are some fire hydrants from 1924. We have photos of corroded fire hydrants within the city. We know of an incident where one actually blew off. What are you doing to make sure when a fire department goes to use a hydrant that this is a fire hydrant, that will work and residents will be safe?
Okay,
so
well,
just as a heads up to jump in, I will get your information. I know you sent me those questions earlier. I just want to remind you that there is an open personnel piece associated with the fire hydrant issue, so we are very limited on what information that we can provide. And I just want to make sure that we're very clear on that.
We're talking about the bigger picture, though. This isn't just one hydrant that they're finding to be old. This is a bigger problem. We have very old hydrants in the city.
If you give me your information, because we have not spoken.
I have emailed your guys' office.
But if it's infrastructure and specific hydrants you're concerned about, get the list to me. We'll take a look at it. I can tell you as a county commissioner, I looked at fire hydrants just north of here in Lellman that were, in that case, it wasn't the age of the fire hydrants. There just weren't enough of the fire hydrants in that area. So give me your list. We're looking at all infrastructure. Hydrants are a piece of that, and we'll take a look at it.
We sent the mayor exactly what he asked for. We're still waiting to hear back. So we sent it to former fire chief Jim Large, who is also running for mayor.
Some of them go back to the 1920s. Wow. Wow. And those are regular city hydrants and not, okay. Yeah. I think that those should be on some sort of there should be a replacement schedule like there is for everything.
Some part of this is corroded.
We also sent it to Michigan State University professor Venkatesh Kodur, who works in the area of fire safety.
Corrosion is a major problem, not only with these hydrants, with anything, including our bridges sometimes and other things as well. So over time, I think if we don't prevent corrosion and other things, it eats away the metal parts that leads to, again, stress concentrations, and so that can lead into bigger issues. Regular maintenance and inspection can prevent these corrosion effects, or even replacing it if it is fully corroded. That has to be done throughout. So corrosion can play a role in this kind of emergency scenarios.
A scenario that this former firefighter never thought would ever become a reality.
This thing breaking off the ground could be a career ender for him, and he's young, or it could happen to anybody else. And what is the city doing to fix this problem? Are they doing anything? Did they realize that there's a problem?
Once they got that water back on, did it go pretty quickly?
It did, yes. But I mean, obviously it was a bigger fire than at that point.
Josh always believed living next to a fire hydrant meant help was only seconds away. That night, it wasn't.
We live right next to a fire hydrant. Like, we're secure, we're safe. If we ever have a fire, it's right there, 30 feet away. Yeah. And that wasn't the case that night.
And it's not just St. Pete. We've found aging hydrants all across the Bay Area. And get this, we've also uncovered another incident of a firefighter being injured by a hydrant. The base was rusted, it tipped over and fell onto his knee. That's why one community is saying out with the old and in with the new when it comes to fire hydrants.
911, what is the address of the emergency?
In a matter of minutes,
My whole house is on fire now.
a call for help
The fire's getting really bad.
became a rescue for one of the firefighters responding.
We have a hydrant issue. Back out of these structures.
Usually during my sleep, I'll get a nightmare of the accident. Bad dreams.
The hydrant where he went to hook up his hose blows off its base, knocking St. Pete firefighter Tyler Villamick to the ground, leaving him with a traumatic brain injury.
And these last 7 months have been miserable. I'm a fifth generation firefighter. This is all I know. It's all I went to school for. And to have a freak accident like this happen and not knowing my future, my outcome, what's going to happen.
We're finding out that these hydrants are over 50 years old. Why was a fire hydrant still 50 years later, still able to operate inside the city?
Our investigation uncovered that there is no statewide requirement to replace fire hydrants simply because they've reached a certain age. And records we obtained show some utilities continue using hydrants that are decades old, even beyond the service life recommended by industry guidance.
You would think in a 50-year-old hydrant that they would say, hey, we need to look at our infrastructure and find out what's going on.
The hydrant 10 Investigates learned was from the 1970s. It had just 2 bolts attached to the base. Today, the hydrant has been replaced. It now has 8 bolts.
After Tyler was injured, St. Petersburg Fire Rescue warned crews about an undetermined number of these same hydrants they noticed with issues. But despite months of questions, the city never told us how many there were. So we sent the St. Pete memo about the incident to other fire agencies across the Bay Area, not only asking how old their hydrants are, but how many of these hydrants do they have in the city? A Pasco County utilities crew met us at a hydrant.
So once that clicks, it's good.
Telling us that they hadn't seen the memo until we sent it to them.
Is this something that you would be okay with, or is this just something that you want to see?
Yeah, so that picture, absolutely not.
What started with one firefighter's injury prompted Pasco County to inspect every hydrant with that design, 336 in all, identifying several that needed repairs or had to be taken out of service.
We did identify them. We found a few that were deficient, which we called out of service, not too many. And we're in the process of replacing them, or they've already been activated back in service.
Pasco County's operation and maintenance manager, Bradley Surrency, says the county's hydrants date back to about 1975, so that puts them right at about 50 years old. Those hydrants are now approaching or exceeding the lifespan recommended by the American Water Works Association. But unlike bridges, roads, or many other public infrastructure systems, there is no law requiring hydrants to be replaced because of their age.
And we also have a hydrant replacement program, which we inspect and replace roughly 50 to 70 hydrants a year throughout the county when they're deemed life expectancy has expired.
A system so robust that they hope within the next 5 to 7 years, there's not a hydrant older than 30 years in the entire county. We haven't found any other city or county being that proactive. In the Bay Area's biggest city, though, we found hydrants dating back more than a century, according to their own database. We asked them how that's possible. Hear the response next.
In Tampa, their database initially showed hydrants dating back more than a century.
I'm not sure that that's completely accurate.
But the director of water operations told us many of those records were inaccurate because hydrants had already been replaced. They say inspection, not age, is what determines whether a hydrant stays in service.
Well, they're all looked at, as I said earlier, and so the basis for our action or follow-up, what is the condition of that asset? If you maintain that asset properly, you're going to get a lot of years of life out of it.
It's a hydrant grease.
If you don't, or if it's damaged, or if debris gets in there through some other source, and we find that the operation of the hydrant is in question, then we're going to take the steps to correct that.
State law requires hydrants to be inspected annually. In this 2026 Public Service Commission filing, inspectors documented hydrants that had failed inspections, failed flow tests, were inoperable, and had exceeded their useful service lives.
I think inspection is the first and key, most important thing to find out any vulnerabilities.
To understand the risk, we showed the findings to a professor at Michigan State University and an expert on fire safety.
Sudden burst in pressure can lead into some kind of accidents. Though it is uncommon, it can be rare, but it is crucial from the point of view of the safety of the firefighters as well as how fast they can get into the job to fight that fire. So that kind of stuff, is very, very important.
Because we know the one here in St. Pete did not function properly. A home was destroyed.
Everybody was shocked that something like that could even happen.
A firefighter suffered a traumatic brain injury, and months later, the questions about why it failed remains.
There was the normal that I was living before the accident, and now there's this new normal that I have after the accident, and it's hard. It's hard to accept that.
And again, state law requires hydrants to be inspected annually, but experts we spoke to say they need to be inspected more often because, as you just saw, maintenance and oversight are so important. We collected databases throughout the Bay Area of the type of hydrant we saw fail in Tyler's case. You can go to our story on the 10 Tampa Bay News app and see how hydrants are maintained in your neighborhood. With investigative producer Libby Hendren, investigative photojournalist Carter Schumacher, I'm investigative reporter Jennifer Titus. Thanks for watching.